So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first webinar of the fall session of the 2021 EMOS webinars. My name is Caterina Giusti. I'm Professor of Statistics at the University of Pisa in Italy, where this session is hosted. And today I will also act as the webinar facilitator. Now, let me first explain for any newcomers that EMOS stands for the European Master in Official Statistics, a joint project of universities and data producers in the EU member states, EFTA, and EU candidate countries. If your university is interested in applying for the EMOS label, please consider that the permanently open call for university is available on the EMOS dedicated page of the Eurostat website. For staying in contact with the EMOS news and community, please follow the EMOS Twitter. The EMOS account is at EU_EMOS. It's now time to start with our webinar. Before I give the floor to our speaker, let me first explain how we run the webinar today. As in the spring session, the EMOS webinar stream on the EMOS YouTube channel, where you can already find the recording of the past webinars. As a participant, you can watch and listen to the webinar. To use the chat to interact with the presenter, you need to log in YouTube using a Google account. We encourage you to prepare your questions and pose them to the presenter during the question breaks or the final discussion. Should you have any technical problems or questions, please send us an email to the email address that we will indicate in the chat. Today, I have the great pleasure to host Paolo Garonna, Secretary General of the Italian Banking, Insurance and Finance Federation since October 2012. Professor of Political Economy at the G.Carli University of Rome, he was Director General of the Association of Italian Insurance and Chief Economist of Confindustria, the main industrial employers organization in Italy. Professor Garonna was Director General of the Italian National Institute of Statistics from 1992 to 1999, and previously he was Deputy Director for Labor, Social Affairs and Education at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development in Paris. From 1999 to 2009, he was Deputy Executive Secretary and Executive Secretary ad interim of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe in Geneva. He carried out research in the US as Fulbright Scholar and in Cambridge, Great Britain, and taught in several universities in Italy and abroad. He has published a considerable number of books and essays in applied economics, statistics, and finance. Today, Professor Garonna will present about facing structural uncertainty and crisis, the role of official statistics and privately held data for informed and effective decision-making. So, Paolo, thank you for joining this program, and I leave the floor to you now.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everybody. Caterina, I am very grateful to you and to all the other organizers for inviting me to take part in this webinar. I must confess that, as you explained in my brief bio, there is a personal element in me dealing with official statistics, because I was involved in an important part of my professional life with official statistics. And so for me, it's in a way coming back. It's like meeting an old flame, you know, an old girlfriend. And so there is an emotional element in this for me that makes it even more interesting. And that I believe I can bring now I'm dealing with a lot of completely different things, but I can bring now an outsider's view to the problematic, but also with the benefit, if you want, of what I remember in terms of insiders' knowledge of the topic. Let me start, and I'm using a few slides now to guide me and you through this presentation. Let me start by quoting, it's a famous quote of T.S. Eliot, the famous Anglo-American poet, that provides us with a poetic formulation on what is the data value chain, or if you want, the data escalator, is something that you know very well. But I thought it would be interesting as a reminder to put it on the front page. The data cycle that starts from concepts, from definition, and then goes on to data collection, data compilation, and then data use or data reuse, and then tests, and then adjustment, and going back again restarting the cycle to new concepts, new definitions. So it's a data cycle that moves from information to knowledge, and from knowledge to wisdom, and then from wisdom to life, because data are a tool for affecting the quality of life, the quality of decision making. So the poet says, where is the knowledge we have lost in information? Where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge? And where is the life we have lost in living? And I thought this somehow echoes a little bit the sentiment that we have when we deal in the pandemic crisis, as we are now, we still are now, we deal with data questions and data problems. So the basic problem that I want to address in my presentation is how the crisis of the 21st centuries have affected official statistics, what challenges, what opportunities are there, and how, in particular, looking towards the future, we should respond to these old and new challenges. But let me say from the start that I feel very excited about this, also this presentation, because I feel that we are at a turning point. We are really at a watershed. The challenges are daunting, but there are also a lot of opportunities there that cannot be missed and should not be missed. So I think this is not an academic question, but it's a very relevant question, and I hope I can convey to you a little bit of this passion, excitement that I feel about being able to live with all of you through these challenging but also exciting times. So let's start from the context, because, as I said, we have
sorry,
to
Paolo,
face...
Paolo, sorry to interrupt, but you are not full screen, so maybe now we cannot read the...
Okay, sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katrina. Please, by the way, interrupt me.
Because before we could,
yes,
it was, okay. And you can also please select the Nascondi blue bar in the bottom.
Okay, sorry, very good. Being not a millennial, sometimes I get lost.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Katrina. Please don't, as I said, don't hesitate to interrupt me if there is anything that's not clear or any question that you want to pose. Feel free. So I was saying, the crisis of the 21st century, I feel there is a big difference. There have always been crises, but I think the crisis of the 21st century are a different brand, a different breed, if you want, of crisis. For several reasons, let me mention a few. Well, first of all, this question of uncertainty, not parametric uncertainty, but structural uncertainty. You remember Frank Knight, the distinction between risk and uncertainty. One thing is risk, and I think we know, statisticians and official statisticians, how to deal with risk. I'm involved in finance now. People managing risks, make money out of it. So I think it's something that belongs to the normal development of business and activity risk. But uncertainty is a different thing. Uncertainty is when you have to deal with the attack to the Twin Towers and 9/11, or when you have to be able to understand that the world is going towards a pandemic crisis because of a virus coming from the east. So it's the black swans, if you want, or the green swans that we are facing that are really challenging us with the structural uncertainty. And the second characteristic is that, those uncertainties have had a profound impact on socioeconomic development, on stability and growth. They've affected our everyday life, livelihoods, standard of living. So I think these are serious crises. And the third thing is data, and we are coming closer to what we want to discuss today. Because you see, what I find it is really remarkable. What is really remarkable is that, in spite of the different forms that these crises have taken, the different features of economic, financial, social, humanitarian, security, geopolitical crisis, there is a significant common aspect. data issues and data gaps have systematically been at the root of uncertainty and crisis, particularly, when we talk of the financial crisis and the pandemic crisis. I can give a lot of examples. I will proceed with examples, with snapshots, and I apologize for that. I mean, the time is pressing, and so I think I have to really move. I want to cover a lot of ground, so I think I have to, please bear with me, because I will have to move quickly with just a few examples. But I mean, I could quote, for instance, the question of the mismanagement of Greek public finance data, the revisions that were at the root of the sovereign debt crisis. I'm sure you will remember well, and I think the consequences of that mismanagement are still ongoing, by the way. We can refer also to the central bank decisions that have been led and sometimes misled by data or lack of data. I mean, think of the Fed. I mean, if you read the official reports in 2007 from the Fed on the economic outlook, in spite of the signals, the unequivocal, with hindsight, signals of a crisis coming from the economy and finance, but they were very reassuring. And then a few months later, we were in the very deep crisis that we all remember. We also remember the ECB. The ECB took a very untimely decisions based on some data that characterized the outlook as becoming more positive and also going towards inflation, and so there was a false start in 2011. So there were difficulties due to the fact that the data were either not timely provided or probably not the appropriate quality. I could mention the LIBOR scandal. I could mention that this is interesting. I could mention the green taxonomy, which, by the way, as you know, there is a big discussion ongoing at the European Parliament on the green taxonomy, a political discussion, and I feel that it's a strange discussion, because you see, a taxonomy is a technical tool for decision making, for improving decision making, and there's nothing to do with political decisions about industrial policies or about whether we should incentivize or tax nuclear energy or gas or hydrogen under certain conditions. And now, I mean, all these industrial policy discussions are taking place in the context of the formulation and the decision on a taxonomy. I think this gives a strange signal on what is and what should be official statistics, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, it's really undisputed that scientific research, digitalization, and big data provided the key inputs and sources for firms and economies across different sectors, big tech to pharmaceutical, manufacturing, and finance. So official statistics has been affected by both the data crisis and the new opportunities. And so I think I would like to discuss with you what is the balance between the positive impact and the negative impact, and so how we should learn the lesson of this impact. But we will see later about that. So we live in a world and a time of paradox. The paradox is that we are in the middle of a data revolution. It's a binge of data, it's a data glut. We have data everywhere, an excess of data even, but then we always lack the relevant data, the significant data of the significant quality. So data gaps, data gaps is one of the expression that you find very often quoted in policy fora and international an international dialogue. So you have the data revolution as a driver of the digital revolution, I don't have to mention the technological developments that are relevant here and that have a big impact on data. New data are being generated, collected, stored, and processed at an unprecedented scale. And even though such data, is very promising and could and should provide great benefit, the evidence now is mixed, and there is a lot of talking, as I was saying, about data gaps. Actually, these gaps appear to be growing, and the impact also of these gaps on decision-making, on the quality of decision-making by business, by policymakers, by households is growing. The perception that these gaps are biting, if you want, our ability to take decisions at the right time with the right kind of information. We could echo what Robert Solow was saying in his famous quote about productivity statistics. We see computers everywhere except in productivity statistics, and I think something similar we could say about data. We see data everywhere except where they are most important and necessary for decision making. So I think official statistics seems to be placed in the midst of this paradox and could be seen as one of the main missing link of this challenging situation. Now let's look at the different response that we have had in different sectors by different players to both the data crisis and the data revolution. Let's start from the private sector. In the private sector, typically as understood early on the importance of data and how data is key to competitiveness and profitability. Lots of examples can be given of how data have been used to design, adjust, and exploit supply chains. The experience we've had very recently with vaccine breakthroughs is also due to the wise and robust use of data. How lending to SMEs is conditioned by data, the quality of data, and et cetera, et cetera. So again, here, there are a lot of examples that could be given. Also, in the policy world, we have made a lot of use of this data, more information, and also the power that this has given to policy and political decision making. I think often the inclusiveness of certain policy lines has been attributed to the possibility of using more and better data, extending the benefit of financial services to lower middle classes, and the boom of fintech in emerging market economies and developing countries. The fact that, for instance, in the US, real-time data have analyzed in a very granular way and timely way how stimulus spending has affected incomes by income groups, and so it's affected lower income households more than middle classes or rich people, which also enabled adjustment of policies, because then it was understood that it was possible and was indeed necessary to put stronger income limits on subsidies. It's not necessary to give benefits in terms of subsidies to middle classes. It's important to focus the subsidy on the most the people most in need. Until we come to the pandemic. I think the pandemic has been, for many things, a game changer, but it has been a game changer also, and particularly for the production and use of data. The use of data in the course of the pandemics has been extremely important. Measuring the severity of lockdowns through Google and mobile phones data, checking how the impact on services through data on restaurant reservations. And you see, I think the fact that we had not only data but economic research, rapid fire economic research based on real-time data, helps explaining why we had the possibility of reacting strongly and very timely and in a very timely way to the economic collapse of March 2020, unlike the previous recession, the previous depression, where it took time until we had the data, we metabolized, if you want, the data, we analyzed the data, and then we responded. So I think the pandemic on that has seen us really using the data in a better way and making use of the existing data in a better way. Let me now come to a different group of players that also are extremely important in this data environment. The world of science. The response of the world of science also has been extremely significant because there has been really great investment, heavy and swift investment in new research, new theories, new experiments, new indicators. Actually, if you look at the quantity and quality of even academic research and non-academic research, from the pandemic onwards, you see that there have been significant changes. A lot more work in social science are of a collaborative nature. I think while before academic research in fields like mine, by economics, probably also statistics and other areas, it was more solos. You had individual or small teams. Now, I mean, you tend to have also in social science what you see regularly in biosciences and pharmaceutical research, where you have an article, or if you want in filmmaking, where for one film you have 100 names or dozens of names. So more collaborative efforts, more applied and business-oriented research, more use of data science. I think economists and social scientists have become, to a great extent, data scientists. I think it's emblematic, the fact that the most recent Nobel Prizes in economics went to applications of empirical methods and statistical theories. Think of, for instance, the Nobel Prize for Banerjee and Duflo that used randomized controlled trials applied to the analysis of poverty and policies, anti-poverty policy programs. And this year, just a few weeks ago, David Card, Angrist, and Imbens were given the Nobel Prize in economics for what they call the natural experiments, the idea of singling out in history, if you want, in nature, experiments that enable us to have control groups and to understand also and analyze the causal relationship in a correlation. And you remember the analysis, for instance, of minimum wages in two neighboring states in America. One had introduced minimum wages, the other had not introduced it. So they went there into towns at the border of the two states to check what was happening, or the analysis that they have done of data from education to analyze longitudinal data to analyze the impact of education on incomes and careers. So I think you see the data and data science has had an impact on careers, on scientific research, and this is extremely interesting and has opened up new avenues of research and new modalities of. I think citizen science is also something that I wanted to mention in that context, because it is quite relevant. The possibility of involving users, citizens, in the production and in the use of research this has really enabled a new awareness of the value of science, a more widespread perception of the importance, and more dialogue and trust between users and producers of data. Now, as you know, I'm talking to Caterina and the people in PISA in particular. Monica Pratesi has written excellent articles on that, so I want simply to quote her. I think the fact that citizen science can be applied to data, and that we can have citizen data with data production becoming a more participatory ecosystem where you can really improve statistical literacy and literacy to core and have benefits in that context that are extremely significant. But you see, in relation to all of this that I've mentioned, this acceleration and diversification, intensification, this euphoria, if you want, of new science and new data, the big question remains: how about data quality? Have we significantly improved the quality of data? And in particular, has data quality affected the quality of research? I'm sure you are aware of the fact that there have been also in academic circles criticisms, what has been called fast food academic research, the preprints. So before it took years until you had an article, and then it had to go through peer reviews until it came out in an important review. Now with the preprint, what you think today can be made public tomorrow, and people read and use what you are. But I mean, is this improving the quality of academic research? People say, well, I think we are now probably more able to identify changes, but how about turning points? How about levels? That's much more difficult. So, and also, the theories. I think we can establish. I mean, we are using also in policy circles heuristics a lot, rule of thumbs. I mean, in central banking. I mean, I think this is widespread for obvious reasons, because I mean the traditional guideposts of traditional theories. The Phillips curve, for instance, which was the basis of monetary and fiscal policy, are not providing sufficient guidance, and so I think concepts and theories are lacking. Now you may say, well, if you focus on data, that doesn't matter. No, I mean, I'm sorry, because in the data cycle, if you want, the concepts and the theories are the starting point. You have first the theories and then the data. I mean, data is not a raw material that you find in nature. I mean, data is an output. It's an output of an analytical framework. You have to first have a statistical definition to be able to transform, if you want, basic information into statistical. Significant statistical information, and also the authority of science, the independence, the objectivity, the accuracy of science has come under question. So, I mean, the world we live in is a world of turbulent change, and that has both pros and cons, and that has impacted also official statistics, because also official statistics was quick in responding. I mean, new data sources, new methods, new analytics. Again, I could give you a lot of examples. I'm sure that there have been other lectures probably focusing on these new approaches, and it's a very fertile ground now, and a very exciting time for new methods in official statistics, and also on this the pandemic crisis has been a game changer. Innovative approaches had to be introduced for ensuring the continuity of official statistics. When there was a lockdown and you had to carry a survey, I think you had to use new data sources like mobile phones, e-commerce, to substitute or complement traditional data sources. But probably the most important, the most relevant lesson of the crisis has been, if I can single out one lesson among the many that we have had, I would say that the most important lesson is that information gaps do not necessarily reflect data gaps, but information gaps most often reflect the difficulty of tapping the right sources and using the right methods for collecting information, and which includes not only standard data sources but also non-standard data sources. And so I think this on this now really we have been focusing on this. We have been focusing. I'm just saying whether I think I should probably stop here, because otherwise, it's a one-way talk. And
yeah,
and
no, we can have a little break for sure. So we, yeah,
to stop
okay.
talking, and you, if you want to challenge or to say, to have some question, I think this is probably the best opportunity.
Yeah, sure. Of course, we also ask to the participants, if they have questions, they can use the chat. But yeah, in the meanwhile, okay, so as you were saying, of course, I very like the idea of these citizen-generated data. So the idea that data are actually property of the citizen as they are the data generators. But can you argue a little more? Do you think they are aware of this? And maybe, I don't know, I think that maybe also the pandemic had a role on this, maybe in the rise of the awareness of citizens that the data that they generate can be important. Or maybe, I don't know, there is also a problem of, a generation gap on this. So I don't know if you would like to add something in this, or if you think also that we should do something. So there are actions that we should use to promote this awareness.
No, I think potentially involving citizens, involving users, stakeholders in the production of data is a very powerful tool to make them aware of the importance, to make them understand, see what's involved in generating the data, and also to make them trust more the whole process and the whole institutional setup that enables official statistics to exist and deliver. So I think now the actual impact, I think obviously Monica Pratisi might have evidence on this. Others might have evidence. I don't, frankly. But I must say that the problem sometimes is that you not only you need authority, you need awareness and involvement, but also you need to somehow recognize the authority of science, recognize the authority of official statistics, and for that, you see, and this is a long-term process, takes time to build. And as you said, it's a question probably of literacy, and for that we need to educate ourselves, and you need to educate the public to deal with the power of numbers, because information is power. Information is power, and so it's very delicate, and we need to handle it very carefully. And so it's a difficult game, and it's mixed. So you have great potential and important results that you can achieve, but also some risks. And the risk might be that the official data are not given the objectivity, the authority that they should have in relation to the glut of information that we have, that includes often fake news, and so I think the idea that somehow anybody can be an official statistician, while I think
no.
To be an official statistician, you need to invest. It's a long-term process, investment in human capital. We will get
sure.
that. But I think recognizing the importance of science and the authority of science. So I think, like in many things in life, you have a lot of potential benefits, but also some risks.
Okay, so let's see. Otherwise, we can go on if we have any other, because I think we are a little maybe late in the program. So let's wait just some more second. Otherwise, I suggest to go on. Let's see. Of course, we will have also. Oh, okay, now we have a question now. So official statistics is public good for democracy. Is there the risk of speculating on information asymmetries to monetize the data?
Yes, I think the use of statistics can also give rise to abuse. And you see, frankly, I don't think that using data for commercial purposes is wrong by itself. On the contrary, I think it can lead to better commercial decisions that obviously will produce greater prosperity, greater benefit to the customers. However, the risk is there that the private sector would be less attentive on the quality of the data, on the objectivity of the data, and so I think the problem is to engage in a dialogue, in a partnership, and this is one of the new tasks for official statistics. Engage in partnerships between the private and the public sector, so that the quality of data and the correct use of the data is widely spread and applies to the whole of the data ecosystem, both the public and the private one.
Okay. So I am afraid that I think we need to start again with the presentation. Yeah, otherwise
we need to move on, because I see that the time is pressing.
Running.
Time is running. Okay, let me now move on, and I think the second part I would like to focus on the challenges. Now I will start from some old challenges, because you see, I think many of the questions that today have become topical are very well known in the context of official statistics, which shows also the relevance, the importance of the tradition of official statistics and the approach of official statistics. Let me mention a few, because there are conflicts of interest between conflicts of values between different policy objectives. For instance, the whole issue of data confidentiality and access to data. So we want to promote access, at the same time we want to protect confidentiality. This is an old concern, and I think this is a question that has been always taken very seriously in official statistics. It's a question of deontology, it's a question of technologies, anonymization of data. So I think on this there is a huge literature, a lot of experience, a great tradition. Mind you, I mean, we have learned this conflict of policy objectives the hard way. I mean, if we go back to the interwar period, there were tragic experience of abusing data confidentiality for breaches of human rights and for the disasters that we have known in that period. So I think, but I think in the post-war period, we have really invested a lot. So I think on that, actually, I think we should trust official statistics, more official statistics than other field, in being able to strike the right balance between data confidentiality and open access. The second question is also very important, the policy relevance and policy use of statistics versus independence. This is also very traditional: independence, impartiality, objectivity of statistics. You see, the beauty and the difficulty of official statistics is that it has to be both close, very close, as close as possible to decision-making, policy decision-making, business decision-making, support for decision-making, at the same time be seen also, be perceived as being independent from policy or political orientation, so impartial, objective. So and this trade-off is very difficult. It's very difficult to strike a balance. But I think on that, official statistics, if you want, this is the DNA of official statistics. So it's a traditional conflict on which we have a lot of experience. The other one is this national, local specificities versus cross-border and global comparability. Statistics is a language, and so language, it aims at becoming universal And so I think, you must have this granularity in understanding the local conditions, idiosyncratic mechanism at the national level, but at the same time, you should be able to speak the same language. And so the fact that, one of the critical aspect of the quality of statistics is the cross-country comparability of statistics. The best statistical standards are the global standards. And innovation and competition versus concentration, price discriminations, and abuse of dominant positions. Inclusion, greater access to data enables inclusion. At the same time, sometimes the use of data with, for instance, statistical profiling, algorithmic biases, can create problems. And we have this important problem of the data gap, the data availability divide, which is a new form of poverty. You can be middle class, but sometimes if you're not able to use the data to be connected to the world, you are disadvantaged. And this is something that should be taken into. So I think there are all questions. I don't want to underrate them. I don't want to, but I think somehow I feel quite confident that on these questions, official statistics has earned a lot of experience, and there is a huge literature, and so should not be of too great concern. But we have new problems, and they have appeared really in the pandemic crisis. I think actually the data crisis can be seen as part of the pandemic crisis, and I felt, again, I don't have time to go through the details, but I felt that the way I'm talking of us, of myself as a citizen, we have been given information on the pandemic. I think the lack of data, poor data quality, non-comparability, opaque dissemination, the political interference. You had from one region to the next, data were not comparable. They were given with no firewalls between, technicians and policy or makers or politicians. I think this is a situation which is really undermining the public confidence in all data and also in official statistics. So you see, my main regret, I listed a lot of problems that I felt I have experienced in the pandemic crisis, but my main regret is that somehow in the pandemic we have marginalized official statistics. You see, official statistics has been felt as something that belonged to economic, financial statistics, not to epidemiological data, and this, in my view, has had very serious consequences in terms of standards and disapplication of standards, of some of the important standards, for instance, dissemination standards that have been applied in the world of official statistics. Now, there is no point in the blame game. I don't think we should say whose responsibility it is. Obviously, responsibility must be shared, but I think that official statistics has felt the brunt of these new challenges, and so if we need to look carefully at why this has happened. I believe, for instance, that lack of resources and other obstacles, official statistics has not been able to keep up with the exponential growth of data requirements. I've quoted here one policymaker. There are many quotes that we can make. The US Assistant Treasury Secretary, who was actually, not criticizing, but self-criticizing, because he was criticizing his own data and was saying traditional government statistics were not really very helpful. By the time they came out, the data were stale, and so on and so forth. There are many reasons why I think that this perception of official data not being adequate, and I repeat, it's also a question of perception, because I think, you see, official data, not only they have to be very good, solid, right quality, right time, right place, but they have to be perceived as such. So there is a problem of perception. And I believe the perception of availability of data and data quality has somehow deteriorated. And this has had also some spillover into public confidence on data, on science, and even on politics. Another aspect which, in my view, has been critical is that the dividing line between what is official and what is not official statistics, the public statistics and the private statistics, market and government data, this has become blurred, has become controversial, and on the whole has not been perceived as being too much relevant by the public, and this is a problem. So measurement issues have become widely perceived as threatening and contributing also to gaps in theories and applications. I want to quote what I read in The Economist only a couple of weeks ago. The world looks as if it's flying blind. And I could give again, I put it in brackets here, a few examples of many areas where measurement is a real problem, and so that we have to really invest a lot in new metrics and the new way of identifying and measuring phenomena. So I think, you see, official statistics finds itself in the worst of these two possible worlds. On the one hand, it seems to be marginalized. It's not really in the middle of the radar screen of the main contemporary concerns, for instance, concerning the epidemics, epidemiological data, etc., etc. And so it's not considered to be that decision that we have to take. On the other side, official statistics is accused, is considered responsible for all the problems that there are in data, all the data gaps that we have, all the shortcomings. They sometimes unfairly are attributed to official statistics. Now, this is wrong. This is a waste, and I think in official statistics we have a whole tradition, a source of expertise, and a mission that should really be should not be underrated or neglected. And I think here, the fundamental role that statistics, official statistics, has played in nation building, in European and global integration, in social and economic development. So the dilemma an impossible dilemma for official statistics that we find ourselves in is the following. Should, in that situation, official statistics retrench in conventional territory, ignoring the wider and more complex and more dangerous world of data ecosystems, very turbulent, very diverse data quality? Or should it take risks and should take partnerships with private data providers, exploiting private held data for official statistics purposes, promote data use and reuse, etc., etc. So this is the dilemma, and it's very difficult to find the right balance in this dilemma. I propose that I go through the final slides, and then we can have a discussion.
Yeah,
Caterina,
thank you, Paolo, because we are running out of time. Thank you. I was going to suggest this. Thank you.
Right of time. So no, I come now to the final part of what I want to say, and this is really the new new mission of official statistics. I think really to get out of this deadlock, of this impasse, official statistics really should embrace a new mission, so I propose to you what is, I realize my vision. I think it's in line with what many commentators and many efforts that have been made, that are being made also in official statistics, of what this new mission should be. And basically, there are three headings, relevant headings of this new mission. First of all, the quality of data. And I think official statistics should take responsibility for the quality of data, data access, quality and usability, not only for the so-called official data, the top of the pyramid, but also for the data produced and disseminated by official statistics institutions, but in the market, by the market, and for use of economic agents and private concerns. So really, officials, the quality should be almost an obsession for official statistics that should become a kind of regulatory agency, regulatory authority for the quality of statistics across the whole statistical data ecosystem. Following what, I called it one data approach, in analogy, we talked today, or one health, because I think there is in the end one health, and there is in the end one data, official and unofficial, of different quality, national, granular, global, but official statistics should really take responsibility for the whole of it. The second, the use of data, promoting the use of data. Data must be used for risk monitoring, for measurement, for pricing, for management, and so official statistics should really care for the wise and correct use of data, and engage in a dialogue with user stakeholders so that they use statistics and use it well. Is the wisdom part, if you want, of the data cycle. To build not only knowledge but wisdom, the application of knowledge that gives benefit in terms of prosperity, in terms of welfare, in terms of sustainable development. And this, so I think reducing risks, promoting responsible forward-looking decision-making is a task and of official statistics. And third, the public purpose. You see, I think the public purpose, because official statistics is statistics as a public good. The public purpose is not inherent in the data produced necessarily only in the data produced by official statistics or official, so-called official data. The public purpose can be anywhere. And I think in many data sources we can find public value and need to use it for public purposes. And so I think, supporting policymakers, stakeholders to use for policy decisions, for strategic business decisions, data is extremely important. Being close to policy decisions, particularly to accompany and support the important fundamental transitions underway, the net zero, the climate change transition, the nature positive transition, in order to fight the loss of biodiversity and to protect nature, the digital transition, and so on and so forth. So I think the scope and the horizon of official statistics should really be broadened. I think is the field of play that has changed, has become much bigger, as if we were first playing in a tennis court, and now we are put in a big football pitch or even a rugby pitch, and I think that is somehow the sensation that I have when I look at the condition of statistics now. And so what would that imply? First of all, investment, public investment. I think public investment in general has not kept pace with the necessity, the requirements, but public investment in statistics is lacking. And I think we should give a strong signal, particularly now that I think we have, because of Next Generation EU, this idea that millions and billions of euros are available for public purpose. Then I think there should be an important investment in data, metadata, in data quality, in the use of data. Public investment is really the starting point, and I think governments should lead by example, by investing themselves, and then everybody else should invest, and then households should invest in data. Companies, small, medium enterprises, large conglomerate, they have all to invest. And I think public investment could be seen and should be seen as an enabler of private and market investment through public-private partnerships, through incentives, through regulation, tax incentives, why not? I mean, the experience we've had with vaccines shows how wise use of public money can lead in cooperation with private research, private investment, can lead to extraordinary results. I mean, the production of vaccines has been really extraordinary. Data standards, standards for data dissemination, coordination, and oversight, and finally, data governance and institutional architecture. You see, I think here the ideal type is really the central bank. I think if I think of official statistics as an authority, data jurisdiction leader, I think I cannot help thinking of central banks somehow, or official authorities, official statisticians playing a similar role to what central banks are playing for monetary policy. So the official statistician should have the same credibility, authority, reputation, and strength of a central banker. Now, with this, I think we can have a new renaissance. And I want to quote, I mean, these are ongoing processes. So history, is on the making, and which makes it really exciting. So when I talk of a new renaissance, this is underway. And, we have had the G7 panel on economic resilience. We have had the declaration of G20 digital ministers. I've quoted here, I don't need to read it to you because you probably know it. Then we have had the G20 leaders declaration, and also this important commitment that the G20 leaders have taken in Rome, by the way, through the Rome Declaration, that they want to work on a new G20 data gaps initiative that follows the data gaps initiatives that was taken after the financial crisis of 10 years ago, and we should mobilize international organization chaired by the IMF, but with the Financial Stability Board and the Interagency Group of Economic and Financial Statistics, in which we have the BIS, the EC, the European Central Bank, Eurostat, and the OECD, the United Nations, and the World Bank. So I think, the data in terms of data gaps, this awareness, this is only a few days ago, the 31st of October, are at the core, at the center of the preoccupations of our policy leader. And I want also to quote another ongoing initiative, this expert group by Eurostat on the use of new data sources for official statistics. This group, of which I have the privilege of being part, has issued the 24th of September, a few weeks ago, an interim report. I encourage you to read it, to have a look at it, and with some preliminary recommendations in terms of approaching data reuse, in terms of adjusting the regulatory framework, in terms of pushing onward concerted investment and efforts. Finally, we are coming to the end. One important factor is the people factor, because you cannot do all what I've been talking about without investing in skills and without investing in youth. So I think we need to upgrade and consolidate the human capital of the systems of official statistics, and which is exactly what we are doing, actually what you are doing with the European Master in Official Statistics, so the te fabula narrator. So I'm talking really about what you, Caterina, and your crew are really doing through your initiative, but because we need more European, not only better and more skills, but more European, more international skills. We need more education programs in universities, research institutes, and high schools. And we need to invest in youth, promote youth associations of official statisticians, support the orientation towards official statistics of youth associations. I put down some ideas, I'm sure that you have more ideas, I'm sure, and invest in official statistics literacy. And finally, the governance of statistical systems. I think we should probably review also the governance mechanisms, because we need the statistical institutions endowed with resources, authority, independence, and policy leakages. We need more leadership and coordination across the different data ecosystem. I think this is new. It's not simply, providing official data, but it's really coordinating, regulating, and providing a leadership role, a stewardship role towards the data requirements, the data use across the board at 360 degrees, and doing that not only at the national, local level, but particularly at the supranational, the European and global level. I think I would like to stop here and now give you the opportunity to ask a couple of questions if we have still more time.
Yeah, we have, I think, some more minutes. Actually, we received already a question that was about privacy. So, the problem of privacy, that we know that is a concern for many respondents. So, the person is suggesting privacy by design can be a solution. So, what do you think about privacy? We should, try to deal with this.
Well, as I said, I mean, privacy is a concern, particularly now. Me provide you anecdotal evidence. A friend of mine told me, I don't know whether it's true, but he told me that he was, calling his wife to propose to go out for dinner, and then in the next hour he received 4 SMS from texts from nearby restaurants proposing, opportunities for dinners. So, I mean, this might not be true, and I know that you have probably more anecdotes that I have. But on that, I think I would really trust the experience of official statisticians. They've worked for decades on this question of confidentiality and how to deal with the confidentiality of data. There are techniques for anonymizing data and making individual data become statistical data. There is a question of integrity, obviously, that also is linked to the authority of statistical institutions. So I would say on that, probably we should trust more the experience of official statisticians. I must say I have less trust, if I can be honest, on the ability to deal with this of other parts of governments and individual ministries, not to speak sometimes even of the judiciary. I think it's an open problem, it's an ongoing problem, but on that I think, the official statisticians have done their homework and they can be trusted.
Okay, so I will just pose you a last question. That is my typical question, because of course I would like to ask you if you have any specific suggestion for our students and for the young researchers. So which kind of knowledge, competencies and skills do you think that could help them to have a professional role in this new world of data?
I think, I would first of all encourage young people, particularly in the years of their academic and post-academic formation and training, to get close to official statistics, to learn more about official statistics, to participate, to be involved. I think there is obviously, if you have a background in social science, in economics, in statistics, statistical methodology, probability, sociology, that comes to you in demography, in actuarial studies, that comes to you easier. But I think, you see, the challenge is the field, as I said, the field now has become so much wider, so much more open, that I think we need also engineers, particularly now that we need to deal with climate change. We need specialists of agronomists, agricultural science, in terms of when we deal with biodiversity and the protection of nature. So I think we need a lot more, a range of expertise, much broader than what used to be in the past. And I think we need a really fully fledged, multidisciplinary training for official statistics, which explains why when we say official statistics, we don't say simply, economic for econometrics or quantitative methods, or we say something that is much broader. We need legal experts. For instance, if official statistics has to move towards regulation, we need legal experts. So I think, there are opportunities for young people in a broad range of skills, and also I encourage you to be open to learn more in other fields, to have a dialogue, to contaminate, if you want, the pure thinking in one discipline with other disciplines. I think we need a truly multidisciplinary approach for official statistics.
Okay, so thank you, Paula. I'm afraid we have to close. Of course, the participant, the slides are on our website, because there is a lot of more materials, but we didn't have the time today to actually cover all the materials. So I will just thank you very much, Paolo, for this very interesting presentation. And of course, I will thanks all our participants who join us today from many different countries. So as I said, you can already download the presentation from the EMOS 2020 events website, where the recording of the webinar will also available actually on this YouTube channel. And in the meantime, I can ask you to check the inbox of the email account you use for registering to the webinar, as you have already received the link to a short survey about today's webinar. We really appreciate your feedback to further improve the organization of our webinars. So the next webinar is scheduled for next week on Thursday, 18th of November, when Silko Stapel-Weber, Director General of Statistics at the European Central Bank, will be presenting on the role of the central banking community within the European statistical system. So thank you again, Paolo, for joining our program. And
Thank you.
Have a nice evening. Bye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye.